Okay, so are you ready to, dive into a story that sounds like it's straight out of a movie?
Sounds intriguing. What have we got?
Well, today we're going deep on Silk Road.
Okay, the Silk Road.
Yeah, but not just the headlines, we're talking about the human side of it all, the stuff that's even crazier than what you see in the news.
I'm all ears.
Okay, so picture this. You've got this Eagle Scout from Texas, right? Total physics whiz, head full of libertarian dreams. And this guy, Ross Ulbricht, he's the mastermind behind Silk Road.
Okay, that's quite a resume. Eagle Scout to ACAS.
Yeah.
Mastermind. It's not exactly the usual path. So where do we even begin with this story like that? What kind of sources do we have to unravel this thing?
Well, the cool thing is we've got our hands on some really interesting stuff. Like, we're talking Ross's actual diary, court documents, and even this deep dive from Wired magazine. And let me tell you, it paints a picture of a guy who was, well, a bit of an enigma, to say the least.
Enigma, huh?
Yeah, I mean, one minute he's graduating with honors, and the next he's growing magic mushrooms and diving headfirst into this world of libertarian economics.
It's interesting how those two things often go together. But for people who might not be familiar with the whole Silk Road thing, can you give us a little background? What exactly was Silk Road?
Oh, right. Yeah. So Silk Road, it was like this hidden website, right, on the dark web. And it was basically an anonymous online marketplace, like the Amazon of illegal stuff.
And Ross was the Jeff Bezos of this digital Wild West.
Exactly. And, it all kind of ties back to Ross's libertarian beliefs. He was really into thinkers like Ludwig von Mises, the whole idea of a world with almost zero government interference.
Right. The free market reigned supreme. So
Yeah.
he was basically applying that philosophy to, well, everything.
Pretty much. I mean, think about it. Imagine a free market where people could buy and sell absolutely anything. Drugs, weapons, maybe even organs. What do you think?
I mean, it's a fascinating, if not unsettling, thought experiment. A world without regulations. Where do you draw the line?
Exactly. And that's the thing about Silk Road, right? It was this weird mix of a utopian ideal and a total nightmare. This digital Wild West where anything goes, but then where do you draw the line? And how did this Eagle Scout, who from what I read wasn't even a coding expert, how did he create something as complex and secretive as Silk Road?
Right, because to pull that off, you need serious tech skills.
Right. But that's the thing. He taught himself as he went along.
Wow. Talk about a crash course in coding. He must have been one fast learner.
Seriously. But he was ahead of the curve. This is like the early 2010s, and he was all over the dark web using Tor and Bitcoin. I mean, this guy created a system that wasn't just a marketplace. It was like its own digital world.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. This wasn't just some online flea market. This was sophisticated, organized,
Yeah.
and illegal as hell.
Right. And it all starts with him selling, get this, his homegrown magic mushrooms.
Homegrown. So he's like a
Right.
digital drug lord with a garden.
Right. But then things just blew up. And before you know it, Silk Road is this multi-million-dollar marketplace. It was attracting all kinds of buyers and sellers.
And I'm guessing it wasn't just magic mushrooms anymore.
Oh, no, we're talking drugs, weapons, stolen data. There were even rumors about, you're not going to believe this, organs being sold on there.
Organs.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's taking things to a whole other level. That's a whole different level of ethical complexity. Where do you even begin to grapple with something like that?
Right. It's a moral minefield.
It really makes you think about the whole idea of a truly free market.
Yeah.
Where's the line? Who decides?
Exactly. And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. We're not just looking at a crime story here. We're exploring a complex human drama, a tale of ambition, idealism, and the unintended consequences of, like you said, unchecked freedom. But before we go any further, we got to talk about the other big players in this whole thing, the ones trying to bring Ross down.
The feds.
Oh, yeah. And you won't believe some of the stuff they were up to. It's wild to think about, right? This guy, Ross, he's living this double life. One minute he's sipping lattes in San Francisco.
Living the dream.
Right. And the next he's running this massive online black market.
Talk about a side hustle.
Seriously. But that's what I'm wondering, right? Silk Road might have existed in this digital world, but packages still had to get delivered. Money had to change hands. There had to be some kind of trail, right?
Oh, absolutely. And those trails, those real-world connections, that's exactly what the authorities, the FBI, the DEA, they were all over that, trying to untangle the web and find a way to bring the whole thing crashing down.
Makes sense. I mean, it couldn't stay hidden forever, but you've got to admit the feds going up against something like Silk Road, that's like a whole new world for them.
Oh, totally. I mean, this is uncharted territory, especially back then. For the FBI, it was like a crash course in the dark web. They even gave their investigation this code name, Operation Onion Pillar. I mean, that kind of says it all.
Operation Onion Pillar. Seriously?
Yep. They were learning as they went, trying to understand how Tor worked, how Bitcoin worked, all this new technology that was designed to keep things anonymous.
It's mind-boggling, really. So how did they even get started? Did they have any leads, or were they just shooting in the dark?
Well, they use a lot of high-tech tactics, but you might be surprised to learn that one of the biggest breaks in the case came from a pretty simple source.
Wait, seriously, they Googled Silk Road?
Not exactly. It was this IRS agent, Gary Alford. He was digging through all sorts of data, and he stumbled across something that just didn't add up. He was looking at online forums where people talked about Silk Road, and he noticed one user who seemed to know a little too much, too early on. And
Yeah.
get this, the username this guy was using was Altoid.
Altoid, like the breath mint.
Exactly. And you know what Ross's username was on these forums?
No way. Dread Pirate Roberts.
Nope. It was Altoid.
Get out. So this IRS agent, he basically brought down a digital kingpin because of a breath mint. That's crazy.
That's a wild story, right? But it shows that even in the age of all this complex technology, sometimes it's the old school methods that still work. But it wasn't just Alfred. The FBI was getting closer, too. They were starting to understand how Silk Road worked, how the money flowed, how to track the Bitcoin transactions. The net was closing in.
It sounds like something out of a movie. So what happened next?
Well, that's where things get even more complicated. Because right when the feds are closing in, this whole other character enters the picture. Curtis Green. Ever heard of him?
Curtis Green. Oh, yeah. Wasn't he like one of the main guys on Silk Road? Something about chronic pain?
That's the one. Chronic Pain was his online handle. He was like Ross's right-hand man, a moderator on the site, dealt with customer support, even offered advice on how to use certain substances safely.
So he was like the friendly face of a very not friendly operation.
Exactly. But here's where it gets crazy. Green gets busted by the DEA. And not just like a small-time bust. They found him with a kilo of cocaine.
Whoa. Talk about a plot twist. So was he a double agent or something?
That's what everyone wanted to know. Green claimed he was set up,
No.
that the cocaine was planted on him by a DEA agent named Karl Mark Force.
A DEA agent planting drugs. Come on, that sounds a little far-fetched, doesn't it?
I know, right? But it gets even crazier.
Okay, now you have to tell me.
Okay, so Force. He wasn't just any DEA agent. He was also deep undercover, posing as this Puerto Rican drug lord named Knob. And get this, he was trying to buy Silk Road from Ross.
Wait. So the same guy who's supposed to be bringing down Silk Road is also trying to buy it?
Yep, you got it?
What is going on? This is insane.
And it gets even wilder. Remember all those millions of dollars in Bitcoin that Silk Road was generating?
Yeah.
Turns out Force and another agent named Sean Bridges, they were allegedly skimming some of that Bitcoin off the top, using their positions to get rich.
Hold on. Are you telling me that the feds trying to take down Silk Road were also stealing from it?
Allegedly, yes. We've got allegations of a setup, corrupt agents, millions of dollars in missing Bitcoin.
This is insane. It's like the line between the good guys and the bad guys. It's all blurred. You can't tell who's who anymore.
That's the thing about the Silk Road story. It's not black and white. It's all shades of gray. And it gets even murkier when you factor in the allegations of those murder-for-hire plots.
So we've got all this intrigue, right? We've got undercover agents, missing Bitcoin, and even those alleged murder-for-hire plots. But eventually, all of this digital drama, it had to end up in a real-world courtroom.
It did. And the trial of Ross Ulbricht, it was a media frenzy. Remember, this was still kind of new territory. The whole Silk Road thing is new kind of crime. And the feds, they wanted to make an example out of Ross.
Right, because he's the mastermind, the Dread Pirate Roberts. But how do you even prove that in court? I mean, this whole thing was built on anonymity.
Exactly. And that was a huge challenge for the prosecution. They had to convince a jury that this Eagle Scout, this seemingly harmless guy, was behind this massive criminal enterprise. And they went all in on those murder-for-hire plots.
Because that paints a picture of him as dangerous, a threat.
But those were just messages, right? Did they ever actually prove that he tried to have anyone killed?
That's the thing. The alleged hits were never actually carried out, and the details were always super murky. The defense argued that Ross was being set up, that someone else was sending those messages, maybe even those corrupt agents we talked about, Force and Bridges, to make him look bad.
So it could have been someone else posing as Dread Pirate Roberts online. Exactly. Remember, anonymity was like the whole point of Silk Road. It was practically built into the system. So it was definitely possible.
Man, that's crazy. So what did the jury think? Did they buy it?
In the end, the jury sided with the prosecution. Ross was found guilty on all charges: narcotics, trafficking, money laundering, hacking. They threw the book at him.
And he got that super harsh sentence, right? Life in prison, no parole.
Yeah, and it's a sentence that's still being debated today.
Huh.
Some people think justice was served, that he got what he deserved. They say he created a platform for suffering, even if he didn't intend for things to go that far.
And then there's the whole Free Ross movement who believe the punishment didn't fit the crime.
Right? They say he was made an example of. That the government wanted to send a message, don't mess with the internet. They also point to the corruption in the investigation, those agents who were stealing Bitcoin.
Yeah, that doesn't exactly scream fair trial, does it?
No, it doesn't. And it makes you think, doesn't it, about how much we really know about what went on behind the scenes.
It really does. It's like we've just scratched the surface of this whole thing.
I think that's the thing about the Silk Road story. It's not just about drugs or technology or even crime, really. It's about the choices we make, the consequences of our actions, and the unintended ripples they create in the world. Ross Ulbricht, he set out to create this online utopia, this free market paradise, but it spiraled out of control. And it really makes you think about the power and the potential dangers of technology in the wrong hands.
It does. And you know what else? It makes you appreciate the little things. Like, I'm never going to look at a pack of Altoids the same way again.
Right. Who knew breath mints could be so dangerous?
Seriously. But on that note, I think we'll wrap things up for today. It's been a wild ride, and I'm sure we've all learned a lot about the dark side of the internet. So until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe out there.